Hello and welcome back to the Keep Right On podcast. It's a different duo today. I am joined by Ryan Deeney to discuss the draw, which felt like a defeat for everyone of the Birmingham City persuasion against Northampton Town on Saturday. Ryan, thank you for coming on. How are you doing?
Bit better this morning. Yesterday was very, very frustrating, but having the night to sort of sit and think about it, and obviously, I suppose, writing up my report this morning as well, I feel a lot better this morning, I think.
Yeah, we've just wasted 5 minutes of content before we came on here, haven't we? But I think my general takeaway, as I said to you before we came on, was that Northampton really didn't try to do much in the game. They were quite happy to sit in their low block. It was very much a back five, and they changed because they were actually a team that have played four at the back for the majority of this season. And they just sat very deep, didn't they? I mean, Blues had, I think, 79% possession at the end of the game. 25 shots, granted only 3 of those are on target, but we'll list off a number of chances later on the podcast, I'm sure. And to give a goal away like that at the end was pretty poor. And there are two people who can take the blame. I think Iwata, when he's collected the ball, when he's collected that loose ball, he can't give it away there. He can't play that pass to I know he's trying to find Samstead, but just get it away. It's the 96th, 97th minute. Just get it away and take the 1-0 in what was a relatively average performance. But again, it would have been 3 points. And also, a lot of fans did point out that Dion Sanderson has made an absolute meal of the headed clearance when it's come down the field from the goalkeeper. Chris Davies, after the match, when asked him about it, said, that's kind of, the bread and butter for the centre-backs. They've got to deal with the long ball because that's all it was. It was just a long ball. And yeah, Sanderson made a meal of it. I'm not sure what he was trying to do. And then Iwata's compounded Blues' misery with a terrible pass. And Northampton have absolutely snatched a point. I'm guessing that's how you felt about it as well.
No, same. It's one of those where you walk away at the end of the game and just think, how have we not won that football match? Yeah, I mean, the goal at the end, if we go straight to that, like I say, I think Davies is spot on. Sanderson's just got to deal with the ball. I don't know whether he's trying to let it run to Allsop and gets his position wrong. I don't really understand what he's trying to do. The ball just sort of bounces off him. Then, to be fair to Iwata, he does really well to win the second ball and get hold of it. It's something he's done a couple of times now.
Yeah.
And I don't want to sort of come down on him because ultimately that composure and that way of playing is part of the reason why we're so dominant and so comfortable with the ball. But as you say, it's reading the situation, reading the time of the game, reading the sort of bodies that are around you. Sometimes you've just got to hook the ball around the corner and just get rid of it. I suppose a part of that is we spent the last 5 or 6 minutes or so. It wasn't that we stopped playing completely, but we did seem a little more reticent trying to play through Northampton. We seemed to go longer a bit more and just clear our lines. And I don't understand why we did it because every time the ball got cleared, Stansfield was surrounded by 6 bodies. It wasn't as if Northampton were really pushing on and pressing us. Whether it was a bit of, I don't really want to give tiredness an excuse, but whether it was that sort of thing where players just switched off, maybe chose the easy route because the legs were a little bit tired after a prolonged game of, I suppose, sitting in their half. I don't really know, but yeah, it was just a strange ending to the game, almost like we're still waiting for that mentality shift to really kill teams.
The point about being tired is interesting because I don't really want to give them an excuse of being tired because they should still have won the game against Northampton. But you think, 1-1 against Northampton, the only defeat Blues have had in the league this season came before the last international break against Charlton, where they did really look flat. And then before the first international break in September, they played against Wigan and just about won 2-1. And again, that was probably one of the more flat performances we've seen this season. So maybe they are kind of just suffering when they get to the end of the 4 or 5 game cycle and having a flat performance. I suppose that's understandable. Maybe Chris Davies could rotate a little bit more at times. It was a free week, to be fair, before the Northampton game, so there's probably not much of a reason to rotate. But yeah, he'll use his squad and he's going to have a hell of a lot of fixtures second half. Well, after the November international break to rotate full. So yeah, that's something to look at probably in future podcasts. Going back to the end of that game, should Blues have killed it off, Ryan? I mean, we've talked about the chances before we came on, and there's this argument at the moment, isn't there? Is it possession without a purpose? Blues have a lot of the ball, and sometimes, you would expect a team that has 80% of the ball to have 80% of the shots on target in the game, wouldn't you? And, Blues had 3, Northampton had 3, so that was fairly even, obviously. Blues had 25 shots. And my argument here would be that a lot of the shots that weren't on target were actually very good chances. Alfie May from the early pet cut back from the left that he completely fluffed and scuffed, and it went out for virtually a throw-in. Willem Willemson, the touch was absolutely exquisite in the first half, and then he's blazed it over the bar. Second half, Clara, right at the beginning of the half from Alfie May's cross, really should have done better. Either side of the keeper, and it's a goal. Christian Bielik's header, decent, but again, probably could have scored. Luke Harris hit the woodwork. Jay Stansfield had another headed chance. There was a lot of chances in that game, and they should have taken them, shouldn't they?
Yeah, I mean, you could carry on listing them off, couldn't you? There's the Willemson header from Peck's cross, and Yokoyama's strike that Stansfield almost turned home. Yeah, I've seen a little bit of talk about maybe, do we change up what we're doing in order to try and create more chances? But I think when you look through the last few games, you're talking about maybe having 80% of the chances. Well, we've had, I think, an average of 16.8 shots over the last. I couldn't find the stats for the Fulham game, which I think, to be fair, is probably a non-event anyway in terms of competitive nature of things. But if you look at the last month, the 4 league games and the Sutton game in the Cup, we're averaging just shy of 17 shots a game. Our opponents are averaging, I think it was 6.8 I've come to. So it's not as if we're giving away chances. It's not as if we're not having shots on goal. And I think even yesterday, a lot of the 25 shots we had, 19 were inside the area. And I think 12 of them were blocked. So, you're trying to find a needle in a haystack at times, aren't you? Northampton, as we said, they had no interest in coming out to close us. Talk of us potentially trying to drag them out of position and so on, but we were penned in 35 yards from their goal for pretty much the entirety of the game. When we did play the ball back, they had no intention to come and close us, so gaps didn't really arise. Nobody really stepped onto Iwata, so Bielik was able to play a lot of passes just straight into Iwata's feet for him to turn around and try and play forward. But again, you're trying to break down 9 men, and I felt a little bit sorry for. I think May had a quiet game yesterday, but it is in the middle of 5 bodies that are all just sat there in the centre of the pitch. The only way you can really get involved is, trying to go down the wide areas. And when May did go wide, he produced a couple of decent balls. Yeah. But it's hard to really. You're just relying on the quality of delivery and the quality of finishing those sort of situations, and hoping a tired clearance for a missed kick or just the quality of the delivery is enough to get the goal. And I don't think we did anything wrong yesterday except for not take the chances that we create, particularly in the second half. And then, I suppose, the longer the game's at 1-0, a little bit like the Mansfield game, the longer it's at 1-0, the more it only takes one opportunity, doesn't it? And to be fair to Pinnock yesterday, like the finish is fantastic. It's first time straight across goal. It's brilliant finish, and annoyingly, you almost have to say fair play to Northampton. They're stuck in the game. They've rode the luck and taken their opportunity when it's come. To
be fair to him, that is a sort of goal you don't often see in League One. It's pretty much the only place he could have put that ball, and excellent finish. You mentioned Alfie May. I haven't put him on the running order, but I think it's worth talking about him again, because there is still this kind of debate over the position that he's playing and whether he can play and forge a partnership with Jay Stansfield. I think it's pretty clear from this point that Jay Stansfield is Chris Davies' number 9. He's his main striker. He's going to be the main man. That's obviously this season and next, and potentially for the next 7 seasons, given that he's got that contract. Alfie May's having to fit around him, isn't he? And he's playing slightly deeper. Chris Davies has noted from pre-season that May's a player that does like to come and link and play a little bit deeper sometimes, which is fine. But we've noticed there's been a significant drop off in May's performances, and not just that, his goal scoring statistics since he's moved, hasn't
he? Yeah, I'm still not 100% sure what, because I think at the start of the season, May played up front and essentially was the leading man because we did not have another striker. We signed Dykes and Stansfield pretty much on deadline day. When May spoke in the summer about the move, he said that Davies had seen what he'd done and the way he played. And I don't know whether that was a reference to him potentially playing as a number 9 or whether that was, almost as a second striker, which is, I think, generally where he's tended to play. He's, dropped off someone who's maybe stayed up the top as the sort of main focal point. So it'd be interesting to know exactly what Davies saw in the summer that, I suppose, the discussion that May and Davies had in terms of the role that he was going to play.
Yeah.
I think aside from that, I've got a feeling all sees. I mean, whether it's May's kind of had the role and hasn't really taken it as such. I think those attacking midfield roles, it still feels like it's a little bit up for debate as to who plays and when. And it almost feels like we're going to be in a situation where, Stansfield and Williamson are going to play if they're fit. It seems very much that way. And I don't think there'll be many who'd be willing to drop them. I mean, even yesterday, I know Stansfield's probably got to score 1 or 2 more, but he scored the goal. He's had 8 shots on goal. Like, the only thing that was missing was just the final finish. It just feels like that. If you take the left winger spot to be very much Anderson, Hansen, or Yokoyama, because the way they kind of have to stay wide and almost stay out of the game essentially until we bring them into it. That third spot just feels like it's up for grabs, whether it's Wright, whether it's Anderson moving across, whether it's Dyke playing as the target man, Stansfield off him, whether it's May, whether it's Harris. It feels like a role I'm not really sure anyone's going to fill consistently all season unless someone really does step up and take the ball by the horns.
Yeah, just quickly, actually, there's a good, interesting point you make there about, obviously the system means that it's going to be Hansen, Anderson or Yokoyama out on the left because they have to hold the width. I've seen a lot of people say, why can't Stansfield go and play on the left and Alfie may take the striker position back? That's pretty much why I don't think Chris Davies would ever dream of putting Stansfield wide left and asking him to stay there, because that's how the system works. The system would have to change for Stansfield to play wide left in this way.
Yeah, and I think as well, when you look at things like, say, the Bolton game or the Charlton game, where the right back is the one that's getting forward for the opposition, that left winger has got to track back. So essentially, you'd be watching Stansfield tracking a right wing back. And, I think the last thing fans are going to want to see is Stansfield stood on the edge of his own box chasing someone back. Like, I know you're probably going to get to it, but like Yokoyama was asked to track Hondermark yesterday, and Hondermark got in. And you can only imagine the reaction from the fans if, we're not scoring a goal in a game and Stansfield stood on the edge of his own box tracking a right back. You're not going to win, are you?
No, you're absolutely not. Just quickly, I will go over that Yokoyama thing, because obviously he came on the 74th minute, didn't he? And pretty much within 60 seconds, Hondermark kind of got in behind him. Yokoyama didn't track the run. And that would have been a goal had it not been for Christian Bielik clearing off the goal line. So that's probably one of the reasons why Yokoyama hasn't been a pick in the league games. He's obviously got to learn both sides of the game. We've seen his enormous talent going forward, particularly in that game against Fulham's 21s, and in a few of the other games recently. I think Shrewsbury away in the cup too. So he's got enormous potential, but does need to marry it up with that side of game intelligence and knowing when to track runners and being aware of those situations. And Chris Davies, to be fair, let him know about that, because he jumped out the technical area straight away and was absolutely balling at him. So yeah, I don't think Yokoyama will make that mistake again. Low blocks are the theme of the season, aren't they? Blues seem to be facing a different low block every single week. Northampton's was particularly low, wasn't it, Ryan?
That is probably the worst we've faced so far to my memory in terms of just an opposition team turning up. Like we said earlier on, they had very little ambition to go and chase the game. You could tell they were looking to ride their luck and hope something come off for them, whether that was a set piece, whether that was a shot from 20 yards that sort of deflected in. They had 5 shots during the game, I think 4, only really from 4 moments, because I think the Hoskins chance led to the Guthrie chance. I suppose the killer for us is that, 3 of those felt like pretty good chances as far as they were concerned. Allsop makes a good save, Bielik makes a good save, and they score at the end. I had a look at it the other day because Davis has referenced it, hasn't he? Sort of constantly playing a back five, and I think he mentioned it in the pre-match interview. And that's the 10th time in 13 matches that we've played against the back five. So it's just something we're going to have to get used to and something we're going to have to, work out. I think fans getting miffed at us, maybe just constantly rotating the ball side to side and waiting for a chance to come about. I think even if you're throwing Dykes and Willemsen into the box, a lot of the time the best you can do is work the ball into a situation where maybe you've got an overload on the far side or something and play that ball across. It ultimately worked for the goal, didn't it? I think Willemsen ran off their left wing back. And it just seems to be the best way that we can get an opportunity at the moment, because breaking down, like I say, you're breaking down 9 men that are sat on the edge of their own box. There are, I suppose, the most famous parallel we've seen this season would be when Arsenal did it against Man City and they just sat camped on the edge of their box and it's, break us down, and there's just no space to break them down. You can't really make runs down the side because they've got a third centre half, so there's always someone covering that, inside run down the channel. So you're just hoping to drag a midfielder out of place, and you've just got to keep moving the ball. I think we could probably do it a bit quicker at times. But like I say, the goal came from it. I think a couple of chances came from it as well, where maybe we got the overload on the other side because we've moved the ball across quickly to deliver the ball into the box. But yeah, it's just something we're going to have to get used to. And I think as frustrating as it is for, us fans sat there watching the game, just sort of watching us move the ball about, it's all you can do really, isn't it? You're not going to get your strikers involved when they're 2 versus, 7 on the edge of the box.
No, Stansford was completely out of it first half, wasn't he? Like, completely isolated, had very little of the ball and wasn't able to do much with it when he could get it. So it is frustrating, like you say, because, when they don't want to play and they just have a back five, and then, if it's a 4 or 3 just in front of the back five, then, like you say, 9 bodies, 8 bodies to get through. It's difficult, and you can't, Birmingham City they're not prime Barcelona, are they? They're not got Iniesta, Messi and Xavi. They're not going to play intricate little passes through those holes that, no one else can do and no one else can see. So we need to be patient, I suppose, watching it. And that's probably why Blues have had a lot of close games this season as well, that they've not been able to blow teams away in league games because, ultimately teams are playing Blues with the aim of keeping it tight and hoping for a little bit of luck. And I think the more frustrating thing is that these teams are getting that bit of luck, and Blues are giving them that helping hand. You think Bolton had that chance, didn't they, at 1-0, which again felt very much of Blues' own making. That might have been a Water. I might be wrong. It might have been a Water. I know Water's done it a few times where he's given the ball away quite deep in his own half, in his own defensive third, and it could have led to a goal. But yeah, so that's something they need to get out of. I've actually got some stats, and I did this in my analysis piece, actually, of the game. 11 of the 12 League One goals Blues have conceded this season have effectively been of their own making. When you think of the one against Northampton, I'm going to try and run through them quick now, and I'm definitely going to forget some. When you think of the opening down against Reading, when they gave the ball away really poorly in midfield, the block challenge twice. Away at Wickham, the first goal was a very avoidable own goal. The second goal that Wickham scored that day from some folks probably, was a fair goal. I don't think Blues have many complaints with that one. Leyton Orient, Peacock Farrell's passed it out to them and they've scored inside his own box. Wigan, Peacock Farrell goalkeeping error. Wrexham, I think that was a very avoidable set piece right from the start, but again, Peacock Farrell's punch was a little bit weak. 2 goals against Peterborough. The second was a free header from a corner. The first one was obviously Peacock Farrell's mistake, which eventually led to him losing his place. The Mansfield goal was a free kick where the wall split. The Lincoln City goal was a long throw-in that Christoph Clara flicked onto Bailey Cadamartri. The Charlton goal was a long throw-in where, Blues have somehow let the ball bounce inside their own box. So I might have gone through all the goals there. I hope I have. If I missed any, please do tell me. But, they've conceded 12 goals in League One, and 11 of them do feel very avoidable. I'm not sure that it's a negative or a positive, because the positive is that if they can, eradicate these mistakes, then surely they're going to absolutely sail to promotion. But, you can't make these mistakes. And when Blues are back in the Championship, they probably would have conceded a lot more goals by this point. because of the mistakes they're making, Championship players would punish them far more frequently.
Yeah, I think the one solace I'm taking from yesterday, and I think some of the goals conceded generally are, I think at the start of the season, a lot of us wanted to sort of push ourselves against Wolves, didn't they, in terms of the record-breaking season, sort of dropping down, having a really good side and so on. I think the nature of the change of ownership, the scale of change in terms of the style and the manager and that sort of stuff. The two I looked at were Wrexham in the National League, obviously being someone who follows the National League regularly as I do. Wrexham in the National League when Parkinson took over after the ownership change, and Burnley when they came down to the Championship. Overhauled the squad, brought company in as manager. The new ownership hadn't been there that long. And it felt like a big scale change, not just in terms of trying to win promotion, but also in terms of the change of mentality across the board. And I think when you look back, Wrexham were 7th in that first season after 18 games. At home, they'd won 5, drawn 5, lost 1. They'd only won by more than one goal once at home during that period. And Burnley won 6 of their opening 15. And it was all they were the dominant side. They were probably generally the better side in those games, but it was just that you're waiting for that switch to sort of hit that, win of runs and win of probably really comfortable wins, which has, sort of been lacking for us so far. Although we've won a couple, but 2-0, 3-1, it always feels like we're kind of waiting for that third goal to come just to sort of kill the game off. And recently we haven't done it. And I think probably similarities sort of to us. I know our record's better than those two, but I think there's probably an element of similarities with us where we're still waiting for that mentality shift of we're going to kill teams. Like I say, yesterday, those final few minutes we've just started, maybe clearing the ball a little bit longer, and maybe it just felt like I was waiting for the final whistle to go just to get the win out of the way, and it's done. The way we've kind of let, Lincoln had the penalty, Bolton had that big chance at 1-0. The Mansfield game where, we've given them a run of, I think it was 7 shots in 10 minutes or something like that. It just feels like we're waiting for that click. And I think my big takeaway from yesterday is even though we're very close to where we want to be, we haven't quite hit that ruthless streak that's going to see us really pull away from the rest of the pack. And I do genuinely believe that it's a case of we don't need to change an awful lot. It might be a little tweak here and there, but we are close to, being a fully dominant, side that goes on a run of wins and really starts to take the league by storm than we are to a team that's, all of a sudden going to start losing games because they've drawn twice, drawn 1-1 twice in a row. So I think we're still very much on the right lines, and I don't think we should, as frustrating as yesterday was, I don't think we should worry too much. The mistakes will start to be cut out, and I do think we'll start taking chances and creating more chances as the season goes on, and I do think we will get there.
I think that run of wins that Blues had quite early, was it 6 or 7 before the Charlton game on the spin? It's probably created unrealistic expectations, hasn't it? Because I remember at the time a lot of us were there like, oh, this team hasn't even hit second gear yet, and it's already beaten all these teams, all these fairly decent teams in League One quite comfortably. Because you must remember during that spell, Blues played Wickham, beat them, Wrexham, Peterborough, Huddersfield, Rotherham. So a lot of the top teams are a lot of the teams that people expect to be up there. So that's probably made everyone think, oh, now we're going to play the teams that are further down the table. That it's going to be rosy and we're just going to smash them, and that's going to we'll be promoted by Christmas. And I suppose it's not going to work like that, is it? Blues have got to kind of find a way of playing well consistently, and they have played well for the majority of this season, but obviously translating that into results, and that hasn't been as easy since that Charlton game. I think it's only 2 wins in 5 League One games, isn't it? Which again, when you're saying that, it sounds like, oh, Blues are a terrible run of form, but I suppose it's 8 points, and they are where they need to be really at this stage of the season, and I'm sure that more wins will come pretty quickly after the international break. And when they do hit their stride with the players they've got, they should be pretty much unstoppable at this level.
No, I'm completely with you on that one. Yeah, but we're gonna hit our stride, and I think we will start punishing teams, and I don't think it's going to be that long. I'm a bit unsure about these 5 games coming up after the international break. I know that'll be discussed separately. But afterwards, you really are hitting a run of games where you're facing a lot of the bottom sides, and I do think we're gonna hurt someone soon. We are really gonna hurt someone, I think.
Well, to be fair, Shrewsbury next up in the league, aren't they? Blues beat Shrewsbury 4-0 without about 10 players. So, but then again, they're going to have a new manager for that game, and obviously the crowd's going to be up for it. So, a very different scenario to what Blues have faced in previous trips to the Crowd Meadow. A couple more things to talk about. One I wanted to touch on, just a little bit out of interest, really. Obviously, Christian Bielik came straight back into the 11 alongside Clara. I think most of us expected that because of how important he is and the importance Davis placed upon him and how Blues play and the importance on him playing out from the back. But it did fit. Well, I say it felt harsh on Ben Davies. It would have been harsh on Ben Davies had he not been ill, but it probably made Chris Davies' decision quite easy in that respect. I'd fully expect Ben Davies to reclaim his spot on the bench, but I don't think he'll take his spot back in the 11. I do feel like when Bielik's fit, he is going to play alongside Clara. To just throw something else into the mix, I've done the adding up of partnerships this season and the goals Blues have conceded. So obviously Clara and Bielik have been the main partnership with 11 games together and 9 conceded. Of course, the goal that Blues conceded against Northampton came after Bielik had been substituted for Dion Sanderson. Clara and Davies is the second most used partnership. 7 games, 4 goals conceded. So, slightly better defensive record there. Clara and Sanderson have played 3 times together and 2 goals conceded. That is including the last 5 or 6 minutes they played against Northampton. Sanderson and Bielik, 1 game, 1 goal conceded. Sanderson and Davies obviously played the Bristol Street Motors game against Shrewsbury together, so they haven't conceded a goal. It feels pretty harsh on Ben Davies still, doesn't it, Ryan? I think he's done really well. A lot better than I expected him to do after that first game against Walsall, where I thought he just looked completely out of sync with his teammates. But he's obviously gone away from that, learnt the Chris Davies and Birmingham City way, and he's come back and done very well and probably not put a foot wrong. And yet he is going to lose his place or has lost his place.
Yeah, I've got to be honest, I didn't realise he was ill yesterday. I obviously haven't read anything you've written this weekend.
I'm fine.
No, I didn't realise he was ill yesterday, so I genuinely thought Davis had made a personal decision to bring in Sanderson. So I was a bit bit sort of curious about that one, particularly with Samstead coming in for Gardner Hickman as well in the squad.
That was a selection one. That was.
Yeah, I got the impression that might have been cover as well, because obviously if Davies isn't around, we've got no one that can play left back, have we? And I think Samstead, he referenced after the Fulham game, Denny, that Samstead proved he can play left back. So I wonder if it might have been that. But yeah, I think it's pretty clear, isn't it? Clara and Bielik are going to be the central defensive pairing. I think Bielik is, I suppose, arguably, he's the first name on the team sheet. I mean, I suppose there's an argument for Williamson and Peck, but Bielik probably is the first name on the team sheet, isn't it? And then, unfortunately for Davis, it's just a case of, you've got to be ready when your opportunity comes. I suppose the one thing I'm curious about is if Clara's not available, does Davis go with Bielik on the right and Davis in the middle, or does he bring Sanderson in to play right centre back? And is it very much a case of Sanderson is Clara's understudy and Davis is Bielik's, or is Davis the third choice centre half and it'll be Bielik and Davis together?
Well, the system's so complex, isn't it? And they are very different roles, left-sided centre-back and right-sided centre-back, because obviously when Blues have the ball, it becomes a back 3, doesn't it, with Clara as your left-sided centre-back. Bielik's your man in the middle because he's perfect for that role in that he can bring the ball out and play forward. And Clara has really taken to the role of pushing up on the right-hand side and occasionally whipping the odd cross into the box. So I'd be surprised. Then again, Bielik did play that, not that role, but he did play on the right side a little bit last season, didn't he, towards the end. So maybe he could do that role. But I do feel like Sanderson's probably a more natural fit if Clara was to get injured. I feel like he's the understudy to him, and Ben Davies for Bielik. So it'll be interesting if that scenario does actually come up. who he picks to replace Clara. And actually, it will happen, won't it? Well, probably will happen because Clara's on 4 bookings. So there's half a chance he gets suspended at some time in the next 5 games. So yeah, that could quite easily happen. One final point before we wrap up, Ryan. Away from the football, the travel issues around St Andrews, again, I left about 7:30 yesterday and 7:30 on Saturday, and it was an absolute pain getting away. Garrison Lane was absolutely gridlocked all around the ground, traffic. And obviously West Midlands Rail have made the decision to remove the train service from Bordesley Station back to the city centre and effectively told fans to find alternative routes into the city centre and use more streets. So basically that probably means walk, doesn't it? So yeah. Does it affect you in any way? Getting away from the ground?
I can't say it does.
No.
But I'll go with, if I go down my little brother, he drives, and we park so far away from the stadium that it's obviously we're a bit more able-bodied than a lot of other Blue supporters, so it's easy for us to be able to go do the walk and get in the car and just sort of jump straight into the the queue for the traffic lights. Whereas I think the biggest issue you've got is, yes, there's obviously going to be a lot of able-bodied supporters that can continue walking in. I think the worry would be when you've got maybe some of the disabled fans or some of the sort of elderly fans or people with kids and stuff that the train service would be ideal for them, wouldn't it? Or at least some kind of service away from the ground that allows them to get into the city centre to travel or do what they need to do. So really there needs to be some sort of thought into supporting those, because we're getting regularly now, we're pretty much selling out the stadium, aren't we? So we need to be in a situation where, all supporters are catered for and looked after really.
Yeah, Blues are obviously put on the bus service with the National Express. National, is it National Express? No, it's not National Express. It's West Midlands bus service from the city centre. So it's only about 700 places, which obviously very limited, and a lot of supporters won't be able to use. So they did actually say before the game that we know that the train service has been cancelled, but we can only cater for a certain number of fans. So whether they could do something with that and increase the number so supporters can get back into the city centre more easily, that'd be a really good thing. It probably all feeds into what Tom Wagner said about kind of looking at the new stadium, and that the government and local government need to kind of put better transport links in place. And I think Birmingham has been crying out for that for a number of years. When you think of the trams in the city centre, probably do need to be better, and just train service in general probably need to be better. So hopefully that is something that can change pretty quickly, not just for the new stadium, that it can change for this season, that something can be put back on to make it easy for fans to get to and from St Andrews. Because if it's going to be 27,000 every week, then it's going to be gridlock until 8-9 o'clock of an evening around the stadium every single week. And the run up to Christmas, that is only going to get worse. So hopefully the authorities can actually do something about that to help stem the flow of congestion in and around it. But yeah, just wanted to touch on that at the end, really, to put it out there. Hopefully something can get done. Anything else to add, Ryan, or should we move on from the board draw with Northampton?
No, I think let's get away, spend 2 weeks without any football, come back and hopefully this winning run will start again. At Shrewsbury.
I'm not that fortunate. I've got to write about football for 2 weeks now, after a 1-1 draw with Northampton, which is going to be very difficult. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Please do subscribe, hit like, leave comments in the comment sections, and we'll try and get round to them in future podcasts. It's a big keep right on from both of us.